Okay, so welcome to this little mini lesson. I'm just going to go through how to build up this little picture of, it's a little watercolour and pencil sketch of a rock pool. So we've got a little bit of water in the sand, there's a little bit of dip and some water's gone in, and we've got a few rocks and pebbles around it, and we've got sandy colour around there. So if you can see on the finished picture, what I've done is created a very casual kind of a circle, but it's not a tight or complete circle, it's quite broken. So where it breaks up, the water's coming out, so we can have little rivulets. And where it's in the centre, there's a bit of a dip in the sand, so some of the water's settled, so we can make certain marks and use a couple of colours to create a watery effect. So I'm going to just show you what I used, the materials that I used, and then just show you the layout of the drawing and a little bit of building up the colour and the impressions that we can get, doing a little bit of light and shade within the colour. So first of all, I'll just show you what I'm using, always very useful. So I've got two watercolour pencils and I've got a pen. So these are Derwent, but you can get any kind. They're water soluble, so we can use them like a pencil and have a mark, or we can use them like a pencil and then put in a little bit of water and we spread the paint. It diffuses it, softens it and spreads the colour around. So I've just got a blue and I've got a sandy colour. It's a light brown, any kind of light brown or sandy colour will do. And then I have a drawing pen. This is just a brown, be like a light brown, a dark brown, just some kind of a drawing pen that gives us a more precise line and allows us to go in some details. I've got a light pen, you could have a 2B or HB, just to lay out my drawing so it doesn't give too many strong marks. But it doesn't really matter, HB is fine, or a 2B is fine. I've got two brushes, so really, for a lot of pictures you can get away with just two brushes. I've got a little brush, it's round for details, it's probably about a 4 or a 6. And I've got a larger round brush which is probably about a 12 or a 14. This is worn off, you can see it's been well used, it's worn off, so I think it's about a 12 or 14. And they are round brushes, so when they are wet, so I've got my clean water here, so put that into the clean water, that will really go to a tip. But it's quite interesting with these because you can use them by using the tip, just holding the tip you can make a mark, or you can press on it and make more of a mark. Not easy to see that because there's not much paint. Let me try again. So you can tip or you can press and leave more of a mark. I'll show you that when we do the picture. So I've got clean water, two brushes, two round brushes. And I've got some watercolour paints as well. So these are in the little pack that you can buy in the shops. Usually have about 12 colours in them. I like to use this type. So I decant my paint from a little tube into here, into little wells. When it's dried it goes solid and I can close that and I'll take it with me because I move around a lot, so it's more convenient. But this paint is the same as this. The tubes are the same as what's in here. So the next thing we're going to do is just show you briefly that mixing paint. Now, we don't use it directly from here by lifting it and going onto our painting. It might be a bit too strong. So what we do is put a little bit of water in these wells and then we fill them from our colours. I'm filling in sort of yellow or yellow ochre or a sandy colour into here. You can do it a few times and you build up a bit of a wash. You can test it, yes, that's enough. Give a sandy colour and we can build it up. Then I can put a little bit of a blue in here. A bit purple, put a bit in here, some blue, bluey colour. And I'm going to build it up so on and so forth till I have some greens, some blues, some ochres. So these are all the colours I'm really going to use. It's all you really need. So I need some blues, just one blue, French ultramarine, cobalt, a brown or a yellowy ochre, a green, any kind of green. You can mix that if you like from your blue and your yellow, some kind of a light yellow and a grey. some kind of a grey, if you've got a Payne's grey or something like that. If not, we can mix that. So it's just yellows, browns, green, blues, and the shadow colours we can mix. This is the pencil mark and this is my watercolour, but those are really all the colours we need. Not a very big wide palette, it's just really to get those sandy colours, which is here, and the watery colours here. This is another good little thing to have when you're doing this, is a little dropper, so it's just a little bit less messy. So I just put the dropper, get those filled up, and then I'm going to need a greeny colour because we're going to mix the blue and the greens to get our watery effects. And some of the water will be spilling out around the edges, so we need to put some water effects in there. Okay, so we might have a brown colour as well. So we'll mix a bit of a brown that's already pre-mixed from these little palettes into there. So the sand changes colour, it's just not just a unified colour. Okay, so we've got that, we'll put that aside, just a few colours, yellows, blues, greens, bit of a brown. And then we have a few pebbles here. Now you don't really need these, I'm going to show you how to do this theoretically, just for a bit of fun. What I might do, if you have pebbles, this is much bigger in the picture, it's supposed to be larger rocks, it's a rock pool, but pebbles can kind of mimic rocks, so you could put them like this and just have a little bit of a casual circle. These shells would be at the bottom of the picture or in focus, but you know, it's not an exact circle, it's just a little bit of a casual look. But those are just little pebbles. You can see they've got the sandy colours in them, the browns and the ochres, those type of colours, beachy colours in these little shells. So we're going to get cracking now and just look at the layout of the picture. So I started with my little pencil here and just drawn out a few shapes. So I'll go over them so you can see them better. So I've just drawn out a few casual shapes. They're kind of rock shaped, but they're irregular, different shapes. Two smaller ones here, two at the front, two down here, a little bit bigger one there, and some little pebbles as well at the side. We might have some pebbles. So here is going to be where the water is. Here is where the sand or the water might dip out. So a little wavy line, that's all we need. It's a little wavy line, it's escaping at the back as well. And this side, little wavy line like that. And that will serve to take us through where the water might run out of the sides of the little pool, so we get our impressions. So first of all, we're going to put some paint on, and then we're going to build it up with a little bit of pencil and emphasize it a little bit, and maybe at the end a little bit of pen. So first of all, I'm going to dip into this kind of sandy colour and just lay it around the sides for a little bit of reference. So we know that this is the sand around the sides. And one little thing to remember that's quite important doing anything like this, and it's the same if you're doing clouds in the sky. When you've put down a few rock shapes, don't have them so that we've got three at equal distance and equal size. Something happens when people are doing clouds in the sky as well. They have to be different, one big, one small, different distances for it to look natural. A really interesting thing is that we want to make everything look very neat, but actually if it's in nature, it's going to be different rocks are going to be different sizes and are just going to be sitting there. So we've got a little bit of a sand reference. Now I'm going to put on a little bit of blue just for a water reference. So just put that in the centre and a little bit of dab, a bit of green into it because it's going to be a sort of blue-green. We can bring it out a little bit where those water trails are coming out. Bring it out at the top a little bit. Don't be too worried about this. It doesn't have to be too precise. Don't worry if one thing spills over into another. That's just a property of watercolour sketches. where we can put some marks and some shading in colour, but it's more precise because the watercolour is running around. It gives us a nice, soft, good outline. But then when we go in between these rocks, this area is going to be a bit darker. So I'm going to put a little bit of the blue pencil on there in the centre there, and a little bit of the brown on top of it, just to get a nice shadow colour. And where the rocks are going behind and where they're at the bottom here out of the light, they're going to be a little bit darker. So we can just put a little bit more on with our pencils, green and blue. You see that coming, that colour coming, but we can spread that as well. Come down the front, we're going to put a little bit on the edges here and where they're going behind each other, and a little bit on the end here. Then it is still watercolour, so what we can do with that is go over it a bit just to soften it. So we still keep this darker area. We've built up a lot of shading, but we're just going to soften it a bit with a bit of water. Take your small brush so that it doesn't spread around too much, and just go into it a little bit. Just softening, just moving that around a little bit, but we've created some nice shadow areas to start off with for ourselves. So we'll let that dry down a bit while we turn our attentions back to the water. So we've got our kind of greeny blue colour, and we're going to come back in here and we're just going to do these zigzag lines. You see that? Just a soft zigzag line. I've got one in blue, and then I'm going to go into it again with a bit of a green, just a little bit. And then I'm going to just get to the edge here and just pull that zigzag line out a little bit, as if the water was just spilling out across the sand, just spilling out a little bit here and there. And then where the water is building up a little bit, you see behind these rocks, so this is where we're going to use a little bit of a grey, so we can have a blue with a little bit of a grey mixed in. And we're going right into this corner. So just going to really create some shade, and down the side here of the rock. So it's where the water's collecting around the edges here. So it's a little bit darker, a bit stronger. Just go up to the edge of that little bit of rock there. And that should start to create us, hopefully, a bit more dimension. We can leave this a little bit light, and then come round to the edge here and do the same thing here, just so it gives us a bit of an edge for these rocks here. So we're just going in a little bit darker, this sort of blue-grey mix, and come out a little bit, spread it a little bit. Down here where the sand is coming from the little bits of water, but we've got the sand as well. So we might have some marks in the sand. We've got these water trails, but there's also different marks in the sand where there's little dipped areas. So again, it's this kind of little mark movement of a little bit of a swirling movement. It just gives us the impression, just the impression of that happening. And we take that light yellow colour again. We're just going to go over these again to bring more depth. These that are in the front are going to be, it's a little bit more in focus, it's nearer to us, so they need building up a little bit more. You can leave a little light area on the top of these as well. You can build them up, but leave a little light area where the light coming from this side might be hitting. So I'm just going to continue to build this up a little bit, and you'll see what's happening with it. So now I've just brought a little bit more sandy colour around, it's like a dark yellow, and put quite a lot more shading on these rocks, especially in the front. So put a bit more shading here, give them a bit of depth, and we've put a little bit of a sand colour in the water. We can go over it again with these swirly lines. Again, it just gives it that watery feel, and then you can see these lines coming out of the side. And near where the rocks are hitting the sand, there will be a bit of a darker area as well, a bit of a stronger colour where they're hitting the ground, where the rocks are near the ground. So we just put a bit of a brown or a darkness in there. And then we can go to our brown colour and just mix it in. It's quite strong, but don't worry about that, we can blend that. We just need to have a bit of something under there. And go in with a little bit of light, clean water, and just blend that away a little bit. So we've got a nice sandy effect. We can go back up here and really put in some dark grey effects with a little bit of brown, the grey mixed in with a little bit of brown, and really go back into this area here, right inside and right near the rocks. The more we do it, we're building up much more dimension. So we just keep going with that to just build and build. And the other thing you need to have with you is a little bit of kitchen roll. So if you feel you've gone a bit over the top or you want to take something off, you can just wet it down and just dab. See, that will come off. So if we think that's a bit too much, we can take things off with this. So that's easily done. And then we're just going to build this the same way, and then we're going to apply a little bit of pen. So the pen here is just going to go to emphasize the edge of the rock. Just pick it out. It's a little bit stronger, and it just gives you that little bit more definition. And you can use it for a little bit of shading as well. You can cross hatch or do something with it just to get a little bit of shading out of it. It gives it a different look. And of course that's very precise. If you want to put in some small pebbles or draw some nice shells down the front, you can get a nice precise line with it. So this is getting near to your finished product now. So we've got a nice sandy colour here all around, which sets the scene, and then your rocks picked out with varying shades of ochres, browns, yellows, dark greeny grey shadows, and some blues and greens, just to make that water impression. And that casual zigzag movement is like a little magic thing to give the impression of water. It works very well. Then bringing out the little marks to make the impression of the little rivulets of water just spilling out of this little pool, and then put in some little details of your own, little shells, little rocks down the front, and some little shells around. That's a very nice beachy feel, and I hope that makes you feel like going and putting your toes in the water. If you don't live near the water or the beach, then you need to make this nice picture, put it on the wall, remind yourself of a little bit of a summer feel. Thanks, bye bye.